A little bit of advice: if you intend on recording a video on a day, don't go to a pub where the band plays really loud the night before. I think I did my voice in, just trying to have a regular conversation. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lo-Fi Weekly, a series with no real overarching theme beyond whatever I feel like talking about. This week I'm going to move away from quick movie reviews and instead discuss a series that's very near to my heart. But before we get into it, I'd like to say that if you end up enjoying this video, please leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and even check out some of my other videos. I would be infinitely grateful if you did. This week's topic is Komi Can't Communicate, specifically the manga series by Tomohito Oda that the moderately popular anime is based on. In a video about the second season of the anime that I released the day before this video, I alluded to this manga a couple of times for a point of comparison, and it got me thinking about the manga a lot more, as it stands as one of the 3 anime I've bought the manga for, the other 2 being My Hero Academia and Spy Family. And the more I think about it, the more I wholeheartedly recommend that fans of the anime start reading the manga from the beginning. Now, if you're up to date with the anime, you might be thinking, why would I start from the beginning? Why don't I just start from the chapter that the anime left off at? Not to worry, I have a few answers for you. First answer is I think you get an appreciation of how much work was put into adapting the manga for anime. One thing I remember seeing when I first had a look to see what the Komi fandom was about as the first season was coming out, was some of the fans had been under the impression that it would have been impossible to make an anime of the series, citing all the little text boxes and things like that as being difficult to translate while keeping an anime moving at a decent pace. And reading the manga, you can see how people might have gotten that impression. So much of the story is told with minimal dialogue, just with the art and text boxes. But ShowPro managed to make it work beautifully. However, having the manga to read does make appreciating all this text a lot easier. Trying to read a bunch of subtitles with the text boxes can be difficult in the anime. While some fansubbers like NovaWorks have done an exceptional job of making them easily comprehensible, most subtitles for these boxes leave the screen rather cluttered and therefore a little hard to read. However, in the manga, where everything is neatly translated on the page, there is no such headache. This means that some jokes are a lot easier to appreciate. For example, you can actually read the hilariously melodramatic email Nakanaka sends to Komi to invite her to her house without having to pause. Another reason is that in different formats, some scenes have a very different impact. What do I mean? Well, let's pull up this scene from the sports festival in season 1, where Komi slips in a race but gets back up and comes in second place to Netsuo. Part of this scene is played out in slow motion, which is supposed to place emphasis on the effort Komi is putting into the race and trying to beat Netsuo. And it works perfectly fine in anime, but the manga pages for this scene have a very different effect. Komi catching up to Netsuo plays out in 8 panels across 2 pages, and the art here, to me anyway, gives a much better impression of how fast she is going, emphasizing her effort in a different way. If you're reading this on a physical copy, you then have to turn the page to find out that Komi placed second in the race, adding a nice little detail of suspense between the pages. The point I'm going for, I guess, is that it's interesting to see how scenes like this play out in a completely different medium, and on occasion, the same scene can evoke very different feelings in manga or anime. Speaking of different effects, it's interesting to see what from the manga gets adapted and when. Let's take episode 8 for example. The last segment of this episode adapts chapter 50, where Komi and Tadano do a last-minute study session with a couple of others. The anime actually trims this chapter down a bit. For example, in the manga there's a joke about Yamai trying to tutor Tadano, but it quickly becomes apparent that Yamai has no idea what she's talking about. This joke is completely absent in the anime, as is a bit where Yamai calls Tadano poor to his face. I imagine this was all done for pacing reasons, but it's interesting to read these little extra things nonetheless. What's also interesting is that the anime is actually, for the most part, adapting the manga out of order. Now in some ways, I can see why. The Komi anime gets season orders of 12 episodes at a time, so I imagine trying to get the chapters organized into 12 23-minute long episodes can be a hassle, so some shuffling around needs to happen. You also have to take into account pacing, audience attention, and all of that. But all the same, the changes made to the order in which the series is presented to us is really interesting to me. For example, let's take the run of chapters 55 to 58. Chapter 55 shows the race between Komi and Netsuo. Chapter 56 is the chapter where Tadano tries to teach Nakanaka and Yamai how to read Komi's emotions. Chapter 57 is the photo booth and cat keychain chapter, and chapter 58 is the chapter where Komi feels jealous of Onamine. Ugh, take a shot every time I say chapter in this bit, holy shit. In the anime, this order has been jumbled up and changed. Chapter 55 is placed in the middle of episode 10 and is followed directly by chapters 58 and 57 in that order. And chapter 56 is nowhere to be seen in season 1, moved all the way to episode 2 of season 2. Why? pacing, I think. The keychain chapter is placed at the end of volume 4 of the manga, so maybe they thought it would make for a nice episode ending and shuffled the chapters around accordingly to work. I can't be sure. I'm also curious as to whether this reshuffling is entirely Shopro's idea, or if Oda is in on it, suggesting a better way to play out the chapters that he wrote. It's an interesting thought. Another advantage to reading the manga is you get to read chapters that just haven't been animated at all. I alluded to this in my video about the second season of the anime, but my favorite chapter of the manga is one that is, as of yet, completely manga only. This is chapter 49, which is basically just a day in the life of Komi lounging around the house during the summer holidays. It is extremely lightweight, but it's also just really sweet and a lot of fun to read, especially the bits where Komi is just annoying her brother, because those are hilariously relatable. I really wish this had been animated, and I am hoping to see it in season 3. Oh, by the way, there are a couple of character quirks that haven't really been translated to anime either. In the manga, it's established that Aguri is not just passionate about food, but is also a highly trusted food critic on the internet. This isn't just a blink and you miss it gag to me, as I think it actually gives Aguri a nice little bit of depth. She's confident about her passion online, but in person she's a nervous wreck about it. This makes her a lot more relatable, and I'd like to see that explored in the anime too one day. One last thing I want to make note of is that in the manga, you can actually see Oda's art style evolve across the run of the series. Some differences are subtle, but what really changes across the run of the series is his approach to drawing Komi. Now, the bug-eyed Komi remains pretty much exactly the same the whole time, but the other design of Komi actually changes pretty dramatically across the run of the series. Her face is a lot more round in early chapters, and slowly moves to a more sort of pointed look as the series progresses. It's just really interesting to watch Oda's approach to the characters change as the series continues. It's even more interesting to note that the design they went with for the anime appears to be the design she had about 2 years into the series. I wonder what the motivation behind that choice was. All in all, I think there's a lot you can get out of reading the series. I've been buying up physical copies of the series. I'm up to 7 volumes now, but as I understand it, you can find chapters online to read pretty easily. If you want to catch up with Komi Can't Communicate after finishing season 2, or want to appreciate the series as you've already seen it from a completely different light, please do read the Komi manga. I guess this will be one of my shorter videos then. Don't have much more to say. Well, if you like this video, once again, like, subscribe, all that good shit, and the Lo-Fi Weekly will return next week.